For many families in the country, the upsurge in the price of food items has been a cause of major worry and given rise to uncomfortable changes in their dining rooms. Now, food items that once were taken for granted since they were almost readily available have now become luxury items served only when it can be afforded, according to the latest report on Selected Food Price Watch. According to the National Bureau of Statistics, the price of staple food items such as spaghetti, beans, palm oil, amongst others, spiked in the month of September this year compared to the previous month of August. The sudden spike in the price of the items has also been attributed to a couple of infrastructural factors, scarcity of forex, as well as seasonal fluctuations affecting agricultural food produce. As traders attribute the increase in price of palm oil and groundnut oil to the scarcity of forex, which is also affecting the cost of importation. A cursory look at the inflation figures from the National Bureau of Statistics also shows that composite food index rose by 20.3% in the month of August compared to the 21.03% recorded in the month of July. The report further states that rise in food inflation on a slimmer margin in August was driven by increase in the price of bread and cereals, milk, cheese and egg, oils and fats, potatoes, yam and other tubers, meat and coffee, as well as tea and cocoa. Now, to give more insight into this development and much more, preferring solutions on the way forward, I would have joining me to discuss this virtually a researcher and agribusiness economist, Dr. Mathew Ojo. Good afternoon and many thanks for joining us on the show.
Good afternoon. Thanks for having me once again.
Now, Dr. Ojo, to put things clearly in perspective, irrespective of the marginal decrease we've seen in the price of food items, as reports from the National Bureau of Statistics for the month of September, Nigeria still largely deals with a food crisis. Do you think the Minister of Agriculture, the federal government, state governors understand this figures and the need to have a different body language from investment base to the value chain, or the revamp we need in the agricultural sector to ensure that we slim down this crisis and also have Nigerians be able to feed at affordable rates? Do you think we understand this?
Well, whether or not they understand it is a question they themselves probably will answer. But I'm sure by the time we explain certain things, we will know clearly if they understand what these figures really are or what they meant. Now, you see, globally, we know that food prices are increasing. The World Food Prices report, which we saw, that's the price outlook, showed about 33% increase in terms of food prices compared to last year. And also in countries like in the US, a report by the USDA recently showed that food at home prices are likely to increase by 2.5 to 2.35 to 3.5%. So it's not something that is new. However, what makes the food inflation issue or food price increase in food prices in Nigeria disturbing is that some of the factors that contribute to these increases that we see are things that we can control, are things that we can handle. From your report now, you've seen foods that are imported into the country. You want to talk about wheat, you want to talk about maybe the vegetable oil and all that. We can easily say those ones, once you have fluctuations or you have rather reduction in the value of Naira, if the value of Naira drops, it will affect the prices of those foods. Now, but then if you look at those foods that we have within the country, beyond seasonality, which has to do with production and when it will be available. Between the farm gate where food, all these agricultural produce are being produced, to the market, a lot of things happen along that short or long distance, as you might want to describe it. So you have a farmer who has just harvested, for example, tomato, and you have a transporter who wants to transport for him. The transporter will have to look at how good the roads are to determine what price to fix. We have to consider the number of police checkpoints on the road and the military checkpoints he will have to settle before he gets to the market. We have to look at how many local government they will pass through. If you have local government officials disturbing them, we have to look at what the prices of fuel is and all that. By the time these food items get to the market, the price has increased. This is different from availability or seasonality we're talking about. Now you have issue of insecurity. So it depends on how secure the route is. The transporter will also factor all that in to fix a price. And by the time you look at the eventual price of this product or commodity at the market, is high up there. Now, when you look at this, the question is, how is it that each time we talk about increase in food prices or the rapidity, the rate at which the prices of food increase in Nigeria, it seems as if there's a helpless situation. Okay, recently the president was saying, I think at the UN meeting, talking about insecurity has affected the food supply chain. But then when leaders sound as if they are helpless, it increases the rate of perplexity among the citizens. So we look at these whole factors, and you have a lot of players or actors along this the supply chain of food supply chain in Nigeria. We have not talked about the market associations. We have not talked about the middlemen. So what can we do? We have a Ministry of Agriculture. We have a minister in there. What we can do is, do we have a national food or agro-product transportation master plan in Nigeria? If we do, there's a need to review that to fit into current realities. If not, then what stops the minister from getting people to do something? Get operational researchers, get economists, get people to model for you different scenarios that might affect food supply chain, which eventually impact on food prices. And then we get the commissioners also in states to do something. Look at the food map of the country. Where is what coming from? If this route is blocked, if something happens here, how will it affect the prices of this same food commodity down to the market? But we have a situation where the commissioners of agriculture or minister of agriculture, as the case may be, we just tend to see this position as political positions. We sit down and we are not able to react proactively. The concern is the rate at which prices are changing in
Dr.
Nigeria.
Ojo,
And of course,
if I may button here, if I may button here, I like the fact that you're bringing the conversation home to sub-national levels. Now, the conversation around commissioners of agriculture having a different sense of understanding of what agriculture is. Now, yes, we have insecurity as one of the biggest challenges to food transportation and even production in general. And then looking at any advancement of any sort of value chain improvement, that's on one hand. But we still have states that are relatively safer. Now, there's the need to create new food hubs. That's no longer news. But why now? The why is what's behind the question. Why do we find it so difficult to replicate working models and then just contextually see how well it fits? Take, for example, Lagos State is a coastal state. You look at the food, like you've mentioned, look at the food map of the country. What can we necessarily replicate in Lagos? What can we replicate in Ogun State? What can we replicate in Oyo State, in Enugu and other parts of the country? Places where you see as relatively safe to speak, then we now start aggressively making agriculture become the mainstay so that we can at least feed the people. Then we cut down the cost of transportation. We cut down the cost of wastages. We are able to manage as creating hubs, pass resource base, and a whole lot more. Have better research done within this regard. Why is it difficult to understand this?
Well, it's not rocket science. It's just a commitment to do something and the will. Let me give an example. I'll start with the security challenges we're having now. The security challenges, you have state governments who they know the food hubs in their state. I've mentioned this before. Beyond production, you might have instances where farmers produce. I've worked on research concerning plantain in a particular place in the state in the southwest, where the challenge for the farmers was how to move their plantain to the market. And you have bunches of plantain getting rotted on the farm because nobody wants to come that far to pick. So the issue with states is simple. The commitment for the commissioners of agriculture to sit down and draw a food map. They already know the food map of their state. They know the food hubs within the states. How do we ensure effective and efficient movement of transportation from the farm gate to the market? How do we reduce the number of actors such that they don't add to the cost or the price of this food when they get to the market? How do we interact with them? How do we interact with market associations? Let me tell you, a commodity can be as low as 5 naira. When it gets to the market association leaders can determine how much they want it to be sold. They can say, we don't want it to be sold for 5 naira, make it 10 naira, because they also have their own cut. See, these players, they are very important in the food supply chain of the country, and we need to engage with them. I just told you the issue of security officials also extorting these people who transport food to the market. Whether we like it or not, all this add to the eventual price or prices of these commodities when they get to the market. So something has to be done. And it starts from us understanding that what the commissioner for agriculture in any state shouldn't just sit as a political appointment. You need to do something about the food situation of your state. It starts from the state also. So if states take active measures to curtail prices within their domain, then we see it reverberate nationally. All right. Why I'm mentioning the Minister of Agriculture, because he also sets the plan in motion. The agricultural policy operated in the country. He also needs to bring all these 36 or whatever commissioners to see the vision and actively take measures that will reduce food prices. It's disturbing because when you have a situation, you produce certain food commodities in your state, in your country, and the prices keep changing, you wonder, even when they are in season. So you see, it's beyond just production. Production on its own is a major issue that can be addressed, but there are certain dynamics that also play between where it is produced and where it is consumed.
And in also developing a plan, like you've also rightly mentioned, we have to look at the role of research towards how this also improves whether or not the value chain in food production. We have to look at research, we also have to look at processing, we have to look at cutting of wastage, and then we also have to look at managing our resource in terms of power and other infrastructure. Do you see a change in the narrative anytime soon?
Well, I don't want to sound negative, but the truth is I don't see any commitment or actions that shows that there will be a change in the nearest future. Many of the research institutes we have, I mentioned it before, they are all just salary collection centers. For example, 21 years ago, while I was serving at in a research institute in the North, Lake Charles Research Institute, I was working under a program, the WIT program. Now, if you ask yourself, between that period and now, what has happened to wheat production in Nigeria? We are talking and complaining about areas where we spend so much of our foreign exchange on importing food. Wheat is a major area. Up till now, if you look at the data from 2010, we're producing about around 100,000 tons. Now it's gone down to around 55 or 60,000 tons. So the question is, what role are these research institutes playing? I don't blame blame them outrightly, because at times they are not well funded, and that is the reality on ground. So we can keep on making noise about how to improve food production in Nigeria. If we don't do something about what comes out from these research institutes, we will have, many of them are like sinkholes. You just pay salaries and nothing coming out.
Dr. Ojo, we have less than 2 minutes to wrap up this conversation. Now, the CBN has also insisted that very, very soon we're going to have wheat also join the list of commodities that wouldn't have any forex allocation for that. So if you're going to import wheat, you're doing that at your own peril. But have we developed any sort of framework to ensure that we have aggressive production of wheat? That's a question we have to ask. Now, we cannot necessarily have monetary policy measures just come into place overnight without necessarily putting in the work. You look at the likes of Ghana, they expect to also cut down the production of the importation of rice, and then towards their agenda, they are also trying to set up infrastructure to ensure that they have rice production driven much more aggressively. Do you think we can likely see that in terms of wheat?
My problem is, when such decisions are being considered, what are they based on? Based on what data? Is the data saying that we are improving in the rate of production in Nigeria? Is the data saying that based on what we have produced now, the prices of wheat will be, in the next 5 years or 10 years will be such that we can now rely on that and decide not to make forests available for importation. That is the challenge we are having. You have an arm of the government just making some pronouncement. Was it based on discussion with the Minister of Agriculture? Is it part of it? Does it know about this? If we just come out and make some pronouncements, we end up creating, necessary anxiety amongst the people in terms of food. For example, the wheat you mentioned, look at the percent. I was reading a report about 75 million, okay, in terms of food that's related to wheat is consumed by Nigerians. If you do anything that affects wheat, it's going to affect bread, it's going to affect confectionery, it's going to affect noodles, and just look at how the lives of ordinary Nigerians will be impacted negatively by just not making forests available for wheat importation. We can do that, but we need to plan first. We need to look at data. We need to put measures. The same thing we've done for rice. Let's have a program like that. Let's have a 5-year program, a 10-year program to ensure that we are only producing 2% of the wheat we consume in this country. If we are not taking decisions based on forex alone, how does that impact on the livelihood of many Nigerians who depend on wheat-related food, to survive? So we need to look at things holistically, not just making pronouncements that fits one angle and then can disrupt the other. We can get there, but we need to rely on data, plan strategically on how to get there, and then we can become self-sufficient in wheat production in the nearest future.
We definitely need to plan, and we cannot just throw money or just wake up and create policies in terms of agriculture. We definitely need to be intentional. Thank you very much for your time on the show this afternoon, Dr. Mathew Ojo, Agribusiness Economist. It's been a pleasure speaking with you.